It's Thanksgiving Sunday today. It is a place, we're in a place where God is. And where God is, the Spirit of God dwells there. And as my brother was sharing earlier on, from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, I believe that, we were praying that even this morning earlier on that, there is, when we talk about Thanksgiving, the reason why maybe we're not able to give thanks is not because we don't want to give thanks. It is because there is a battle that we are fighting that is not physical. There is a battle that we are fighting. It says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We're not fighting physical war. We're not fighting physical battle. And so as I share today, I take authority over every confusion in the mind. I take authority over the spirit of guilt, shame, pain, and everything that would not rise up, to worship God. I silence them in the name of Jesus. And today I'd like to talk about David. Many of us know David. David was a powerful man. I titled this message, what did I title it again? I forgot. What's the title of my message? Very good, thank you. An active heart of worship. That's the title of my message, an active heart of worship. And the subtitle is starting from where you are. And I just want to, look at the story of David. David was a powerful man. He was a strong man in battle. He did a lot of great things. When David was a little child, he was, a child, the last child of his family, and he was in charge of, taking care of some of the flock, that his dad had. And there was a time that David was taking care of the flock, and there was a lion that came and attacked one of his, lamb, and what did he do? He went after this lion. We're not talking dog. If I see a dog, I run, okay? David saw a lion and ran after the lion, rescued the lamb and brought him back and killed the lion. Another time there was a bear that came, and he did the same thing to the bear. David was a strong man. He became a king in Israel. He became, a ruler after Saul, the king, the first king. He became the second king in Israel. And apart from that, he did all sorts of atrocities too. Committed adultery with Uriah's wife and killed Uriah, married Bathsheba. This was David. David was another man that had a heart for worship. He would just worship God. If you look in the Bible, you will see the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms has so many songs in there. David was one of those that wrote many of the songs in Psalms. So he was a worshiper. He was an amazing man. If you want to, even today when they talk about, if you talk to the Jewish people, they talk about David. He's highly exalted among the tribe of Israel. And David, at the point that I'm going to be looking at today, he had just finished another battle, like one other battle among all the battles that he would go to, and he would conquer, and he would bring a lot of lots, back, and the temple of God, the Ark of Covenant was now back in Israel, and and everything was exciting. And then all of a sudden, he thought to himself one day, he was just looking around himself, and he discovered, he was critically looking at himself, and he said, wow, I live in a place that is so beautiful. I live in my palace is full of gold and silver and all this wonderful, things around me. I can see that, the Lord has blessed me. And he was looking around, and then all of a sudden he discovered, come to think of it, I live in a palace, but the Ark of the Covenant, at that time the Ark of the Covenant was their representation of God, of the presence of God. At that time, the Ark of the Covenant was living in a tent. Okay? So David discovered, and it occurred to him that that's not right. This is not right. I am living in a place that is so beautiful. My God, to them at that time, is living in a tent. How can that be? And he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a temple for God. I'm going to build this temple, and he's already, David, because of the kind of man that David was, he dreamt big, He wouldn't go for, any house, He was already picturing all the gold and the silver and the, metals and the quality that was going to come up, in the temple that he wanted to make for his God. And incidentally, the prophet of God was also, there with him at that time. The prophet of God, Nathan, I believe, was there in the same place with him. And so he said, I'm going to build a temple for my God. And Nathan said, the Lord is with you. Go for it. You can do it. And he was saying to him, you know what? I know whatever you see, whatever is in your mind, just do it. It's going to please God. And then after that, Nathan went home and he slept in the night. That same night, the Bible says in 1 Chronicles chapter 17. I'm not going to read it. I'd like you to, take some time to read it too, if I'm able to encourage you to be interested in the story enough, go read it. Now in 1 Chronicles 17, it says that in the middle of that same night, God appeared to Nathan or spoke to Nathan. And he said to him, what you said is wrong. I didn't tell you to say that. I didn't tell you to tell David that. That was wrong. I am not choosing David. Okay, thank you. It says, go and tell my servant David. This is what the Lord has declared. You are not the one to build a house for me to live in. Whoa. How? Like, Lord, what are you saying? You mean I am not the one that you will use? Doesn't make sense. Lord, I have all these great plans. It's going to be very beautiful. David had been planning that he's going to do that. I don't know about you, but when I read that, it was like a big no that David got, maybe even for the first time in his life. I don't know. At least in the place of power that he had been. He got a no. God said, no, I don't want you to build a house for me. You're not the one that will build a house for me. Why? Because you have shed a lot of blood. I've used you in this way. At that time, they needed to conquer territories and to wage war against their enemies, blah, 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 all sorts of things. And God said, no, you're not the one that will do this. I have chosen another person. Now, as I read that, I was like, wow. When was the last time I got a no, from God? When was the last time, I really desired to do something for God? And God said, no, I don't want you to do it. How do you know when that happens? When that happens, maybe things doesn't work the way you want it to go. Things doesn't align in the plan that we have. I'm just going to build this wonderful, wonderful temple. It's going to be to the glory of my God. And sometimes we plan a lot of things, and then it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that. And what that means is we're not in control, so to speak. We're not in control of the things that we really, really desire. And God says, no, I don't want that. Or maybe he says, not yet. Not yet. I'm not ready for that yet. Now, when this happens in when God says no, a few things can happen. A few emotions can begin to develop in our minds. A few, things where he had, said, I'm going to build a temple, I'm going to do all these things, but God said no. The emotion that could come could be resentment. Lord, you mean after all the things I have done, you're trying to say that I'm not the best person to build for you? Is that what you're saying? Lord, is this, I even wonder who amongst all these people can actually be better than me. This can be the thoughts that, how that you begin to compare and say, what exactly is it? Who are you going to choose? Let me even look through and see. I have done this, I have done this, I have done that. And you're trying to say that I'm not the one that is fit to do this job. No, I don't agree. And all sorts of negative emotions could come from that. Anger that you just, feel like, what, I'm just sick and tired of all these things. What is this? You mean this is what I get for all the work that I do around here? Is this what I get for slaving myself for my children and my husband and my, wife and all these things? Is this what I get? When God, I go, I don't know what, is maybe what you've gone through lately, but I know that in the world that we live in, there's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of, pain that is out there that many times we actually as Christians pray about. Okay, I want to apply for this job, for example. And I go and I apply for that job. And all the while as I'm applying for the job, I'm praying, Lord, my God, you will provide, you will give me this job. The interview will go very well, blah, 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 and you just believe in God. Someday you are even praying and you see a word and it says, oh, I am the Lord, I am with you, and you feel like, God is with me. And then you go to the place and they say, oh, sorry, you're not even going to have an interview because we picked somebody already. And you're like, what? After all the prayer that I prayed? Now, it's a lot of, when we get this kind of disappointments, when we get things happen like this, it could be discouraging. It could be discouraging. If we look at the story of David, he wanted to do something really good for God. It could be discouraging. That you actually just feel like, what, that's it. I just want to be. I just want to be. I just don't want anything. I just don't want, anything anymore at this point. However, in First Chronicles, continuing, David, after Nathan came to him and explained, some of the things, you see that guy there? Yeah. Those are the kind of, resentment, emotions that could just come out. Jealousy. That what's the difference, between this and that? I just am, it could be that. Anyway, so Nathan came and talked to David about what the Lord had said. That the Lord had said that, he's not going to be the one taking care of. But he went ahead and explained all the things that God had told him. Part of which included that the son of David, Solomon, was going to be building the temple. Now, in this story, David could have chosen to see the negative, but he began to see the positive. He began to see the blessing in the no. He began to see the excitement in the rejection, so to speak. And when Nathan came and explained everything to him, that you're not going to be the one, doing this, but your children, your child is going to be the one. And after year, tenor after tenor, the children of David will continually be king in the house of, in Israel. David heard that. And David, instead of him being angry, instead of him being discouraged, he began to see the opportunity. He began to see the blessing in his situation, in what God has said. Now, in our own, bring it back to our own situation today. I don't know. Today is Thanksgiving. Like I said, it's easier to preach a sermon on a Thanksgiving Sunday because everybody is already thinking Thanksgiving. It's easier, But I don't know what you've experienced lately. I don't know what you've experienced lately. I don't know, where your heart is right now. I don't know what you experience on a daily basis. Might not even be an incident that happened once. It could even be something that you experience on a daily basis, that it just continues to happen over and over and over again. But I want to say this to you this morning, that let's look at David. Let's look at what David did. He began to look at the blessings in his no. He began to look at the blessings that God had wrapped in that place that he was at that time. He began to, see what, out of some of the things that Nathan told him, what are the good things that are in there? And as he began to see that, something, came up in his mind, and he said, "Oh my God, who am I, Lord, that you have chosen to bless me, your servant, so much?" Now, he's not the one building. His son is going to be the one building. Now, we can also still say that, yeah, sure, he's still in his lineage. But the powerful him would have still preferred to say, yes, and David built, the last thing that David did was he built the great temple for the Lord. But God said no. And in this situation, he said, "You have blessed me so much. You have decided to look upon me favorably. And you have chosen to just lift my soul and just encourage me. And I appreciate this." And he wasn't gonna, carry on in this negative emotions. He was going to just bless God. And what am I trying to say from that to you and to me? That in every situation that we're in every no that we get, in every not yet that we get, there is a blessing. There is a blessing. Let's not wait. We could as well wait. I mean, you and I believe we have been in a position where we've known that, there's a no, and eventually we saw why God said no, but we lived the misery of the, in between the happening and the discovering. But let's move from that, postponing the joy. Let's not postpone the joy. Today, look at the no and begin to look out for the great things in the no. There is something exciting in that not yet, in that delay. There is something exciting in it. In that pain right now, there is something exciting in it. And I just want to, on this Thanksgiving Sunday, I want to underline that. And I just want to, let us see that if we begin to focus on the great and on looking for the positive in the delays, we would actually see the positive. We would actually see. Now, what did David, what did he do? What did he do? He started, as he was looking and trying to see, okay, what do I do now? And in our own situations too, we can ask, okay, so what do I do with this information now? Louis is saying that I should be looking for the positive in the delays and in the pain and in the shame. What do I do? David, what he did was he began to look around for the need that was there. Okay, God, you are saying that I'm not going to be, building you a temple. I'm not going to be, doing this and that for you. Okay, I agree. But Lord, okay, so if we're still, you're not saying that we're not going to be building the temple. So you still agree that we're going to build the temple. Yes. Okay. And so he began to think, okay, if we're going to build a temple, even not me, there will be need for materials for the temple. There will be need for people that will build the temple. We need, the masonries and the people that would, put the carpenters and the, artists and all these things. He began to see that, okay? So he's identified two things. First, the materials. Second, the people. And third, let me just read 1 Chronicles 28, 9 to 10. Third, and in 2 Chronicles, chapter 28 from verse 1, it talks about how he began to gather materials and he began to find people that would work in the building of the temple. But let's read what he says in 28, 9 and 10. it says, I have it here, it says, and Solomon, my son, learn to know the God of your ancestors intimately. And he, actually before that, he talks about the fact that, I didn't put that down. He talks about the fact that, he said, my son, if I can find it quickly, my son, Solomon, is too young and inexperienced. I don't know if we can find that. I think it's in the earlier part of that chapter. My son Solomon is too young, the one that God has chosen, is too young and is inexperienced. That's the third thing that he discovered while he was looking for the positive in his rejection, in his no. He was looking for, and then he discovered that Solomon, even though Solomon had been chosen to be the king that would build the temple, he knew to himself that Solomon is too young. He needs mentoring. He needs help. He needs somebody to guide him. Now, how does that apply to us? How does that apply to us? That applies to us when we begin to look for the good in the no, we begin to see the people around us that need help. We begin to see, David began to see that, okay, I need to invest more time into mentoring Solomon. I need to invest more time into helping this guy that God has given a lot of responsibility to. Now, if you look around today, if you look around you and look away from the stress for a moment, and you, even if you look at the stress because it's constantly there, you would actually see that there are some needs around. There are some needs around. I remember there was a time that we didn't have money to buy things from the dollar store. Needed, maybe, I look in my kitchen drawer and I see, 3 forks and some, I'm having somebody over. I didn't have money to go to the dollar store and buy some more forks, that I would use to have people over. So we would just rearrange it. So today, if somebody comes, if I'm doing we're gathering and we sit down and somebody says the forks and the knives are not correct and they're not arranged, I just look and say, you don't know. You don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And when you begin to look outside of the place where you are, and you begin to look, you begin to see that even with those 3 forks and things that we had, it was still like celebration every day. It was still like celebration every day because we had different people over. And if we can just begin to look away from the reality, is true, is there. We can. There's nothing we can do about it. Our heart. It's there. There's. But if we begin to look away from it, we begin to see the opportunities. We begin to see the abundance that God has gifted us with. We begin to see the abundance of God's grace that we have to equip other people. We begin to see that it doesn't matter if I don't have enough forks to have people over. We'll use our hands if we have to. Yes, in Nigeria, we use hands to eat. So what stops me from doing it here? We'll use it. And it doesn't matter. It even tastes better when you use your hand. Just make sure your hands are washed. And so it doesn't matter. There's a lot of difficulties around. That if we actually want to spend the rest of our lives being negative and complaining, we will find something to be complaining about. Every single one of us. Every single one. But if we just tell ourselves that, what? I'm going to just, look around and I'm going to begin to find somebody that needs help. And at that time, David at this point was closer to the end of his life. But then he began to this same son of his has been his favorite son. He's always, he's always taking care of him. He's always, I can imagine, teaching him. But at this point, because he sees that there's a responsibility that God has put in this guy's life, he began to invest even more. And that's why in verse 9 to 10 there, 28, it says, and Solomon, my son, called him in and said, this is what God is calling you to do. He said, learn to know God, the God of your ancestors, intimately. Worship and serve him with the whole of your heart and a willing mind. Worship him. I don't know about you. I don't know if you found some people around you that you are pouring into like this. That you're calling them in the middle of the night or any time of the day and you're saying to them, this God, worship him with the whole of your heart. I don't know. I don't know if there are people around you that you see that need help that you're going to pour out to. It doesn't even matter whether it's food. You don't even have food yourself. You can still help. It doesn't matter. It's not about money. It's not about money or giving. It's not about that. It's about pouring your life into another person. If you begin to see, one thing that I have found out is, as in my short life, I have found out that if I continue to focus on myself, there is no power to help anybody else. But if I look away and look away from the things that I expect so much and I'm really longing to see happen, and I just look away from that, I begin to find the joy to help many, many other people. And I believe that that's what God does when we look away from the circumstance, look away from the issues that are apparent, very, very apparent, that are there, that if we spend the next 3 weeks, we're still going to be finding something to be mad about. We will. But if we look away, we'll begin to see that this God has empowered us for greatness, has empowered us for greatness. You see, when you begin to do this, like David, he began to say to his own son, he didn't even need to look far. He didn't need to look too far. He was in his own house that he found that if I can just pour my life into this guy that has so much responsibility upon him, I would actually begin to see, fulfillment in my own life. At least all we need is just something small that keeps us living. Something, one purpose that you're living for. And you see, the devil that, we started earlier on with the fact that the battle that we have here, it's not physical battle. The enemy is very serious at getting you down. He's very serious at getting me down. And he will want to make us focus, even when things are exciting. Like if I come here and I say, all these things, blah, blah, even when things are exciting for me, I can still see millions of things to be discouraged about, even when things are good. Now talk less of when things are not good. The enemy wants you to focus on these things. And you see, the energy that it takes to focus on the negative, it destroys. It even begins to deep down in the body, physical body, that you start having pain everywhere. You start having, stomach ulcer. You start having all these terrible, terrible things because of where your heart is. What you are thinking about. And I just want to, to encourage us today. You see, when God made you, I wasn't there, but I think that when he made you, he had something in mind. He had a purpose. He had, God, the God that we serve. You look around. The God that made you is not me. It's not me. When I make things, sometimes they're not perfect. But God, when you look around, you see the God that made you. He made the colors. You see all these colors? You see all of them, millions, nice colors, that somebody even comes out again and brings another shade of color again. God made that. The rocks, the sea, the fishes, the animals. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I was driving Ade to the airport, and we were just talking about, we have this desire that we want, Demi and Dami to learn Yoruba. Yoruba is my native language. And so they were watching a movie in the car as we drove. And then it just hit me. And I was like, I have an idea. Why don't we contact Pixar and Disney and these companies, and tell them that these movies that these children already like, okay, we would translate it to Yoruba and let them learn some Yoruba. And we're like, yeah, that's and Ade is the more, reasonable one, okay? I dream a lot. I just think, And so he was like, yeah, that's a good idea, that's a very good idea. However, how much is it going to cost? How many people speak Yoruba in the world that are interested in listening to? you know how much it's going to cost you to talk to Pixar and, get a license, and all these things. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll go to Sesame Street or, bringing it down, And why am I sharing this? That, you see, God is the one, he made us for all the languages. If I begin to ask all the languages, even just in this room alone, we will see that God, if I begin to just stop speaking English now and I start speaking Yoruba, you would be wondering, what is this? What's she saying? And it's the same God that made it all. He's the same God. And so when he made you, I am very sure that he didn't make a copy of another person. When he made you, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't matter what you have gone through. When he made you, he made you beautiful. He made you capable. He made you, it's like an apple tree. It's capable. An apple tree, whether it produces fruit or not, is capable. It's an apple tree. That's what it does. All it just needs is for somebody or some, orchard to come and just take care of, this thing. And then it will start producing fruits. That's it. And I believe that what we focus on this Thanksgiving Sunday, what are you focusing on? What are you thinking about? When you look around you, what is the thing that you always see? What is the thing that you always see? And I think that, it's important. It's important that you begin to focus on the joy of God. Yesterday, I said to myself, and I want to, if it's not, it's very ridiculous. I tell you, I think a lot, and I say all these weird things, but maybe it might help you too. I said to myself, I'm going to go through my house with a notebook and write down everything that I see and give thanks to God for. Okay? Now, including my spoons and my forks. I started from the kitchen yesterday, and the list is still on. Now, if we can, it sounds a little ridiculous, but what it does is it triggers your mind to begin to praise God, to begin to thank God. Doesn't matter whether they are dollar store materials. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you got them from Winners or from, the most expensive store in town. Doesn't matter. But the fact that you have them, when you need something, you open and you look through. There was a time I needed a can opener. And I was praying for a can opener. A can opener. Very ridiculous, right? But today I am very grateful for the fancy can opener that I have. I got it from Canadian Tire, $8. Yes, I am very grateful for it. Because I remember the days that I was using knife to open the cans. Yes. And Ade would help too, and I remember those days. And I give thanks to God. And if you actually, take time to list some of these things, you begin to see that God is great. That song says, count your blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. I like to end with this story here, and we're going to pray. I found the story. and I found it interesting. It says it's the story of the black and white boxes, the black and white boxes. It says, I have in my hands 2 boxes which God gave me to hold. He said, put all your sorrows in the black and all your joys in the white. I heeded these words, and in the 2 boxes, both my joy and my sorrows I stored. But though the white became heavier each day, the black was as light as before. With curiosity, I opened the black box. I wanted to find out why. And I saw in the base of the box a hole which my sorrows had fallen out by. I showed the hole to God and mused aloud. I wonder where my sorrows could be. He smiled a gentle smile at me. My child, they are here with me. I looked in the white box, the white box, and my joys were all there. I asked, God, why give me the boxes? Why the white and the black with the hole? My child, the white is for you to count your blessings. The black is for you to let go. Let us pray.